Fellowship of the Great Physician welcomes you to House Call. Our hosts for today are doctors of chiropractic, Dr. Gerald Lala and Dr. Richard Jensen, who is also a board-certified acupuncturist, practicing independently in Shoreman, Minnesota. Let's join our hosts for today's program that will assist you in your task of optimism and well-being.
Welcome to House Call. I'm Dr. Gerald Lala.
And I'm Dr. Richard Jensen.
It's great to have you with us again today. We're going to talk about superfoods, and you would say, well, what do doctors of chiropractic know about superfoods? Well, most people think of chiropractors, and rightly so, as people working on the spine, joints, muscles, and ligaments, and we do that, but we also practice orthomolecular medicine, meaning that we practice science-based nutrition, not shotgun nutrition, but science-based nutrition based on testing and scientific evidence that this does work or that doesn't work. So today we're going to talk about superfoods. 75% of all Americans don't know what superfoods are. They don't. They think they do, but they really don't. And so we're going to look at the primary superfoods, and we're going to begin by looking at them with Dr. Jensen and what superfoods generally contain.
Thank you, Dr. Lala. Well, superfoods are foods that contain vitamins, essential oils, minerals, herbs, proteins, essential oils, and complex carbohydrates.
So basically they're saying that the superfood category, when they have independent laboratory analysis, they contain vitamins, essential oils, minerals, herbs, proteins, essential oils, and complex carbohydrates.
Right.
So if they don't contain those things, they're not a superfood.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so there are some exceptions for these particular foods, but when we're looking at them primarily, like cold water fish would be a superfood in that it contains omega-3 fatty acids, and we keep hearing about what these kinds of acids can do for you. So that's a type of a superfood. One of the things is that it helps fight inflammation, and it decreases the risk for heart attacks and strokes.
So the superfoods contain then what? Omega-3?
This particular superfood, being cold water fish, contains omega-3 oils.
Great.
Okay, so...
And it decreases then the risk of cardiovascular issues?
Right, and the reason why it does that is that, one, is it helps to keep the blood, it makes the blood a little bit thinner, so it keeps it from clotting, so it reduces stroke problems. It also helps change your cholesterol blueprint to be a little bit more of the good cholesterol rather than the bad cholesterol. It also fights inflammation, and we know that inflammation is one of the triggers that starts a heart attack from occurring.
But we as nutritionally oriented, science-based chiropractors know then that if somebody's on a blood thinner, we're going to have to be very cautious about using the omega-3 oils on them, right?
Right. They should know
thin
that.
Them down too much.
Yeah, and you're talking about the essential fatty acids as well as vitamin E. You want to make sure that they don't have that if they're on blood thinners such as Coumadin, that the person who is monitoring their Coumadin also knows that they're planning to go on these types of substances so that they can regulate that.
That's the key then, monitoring.
Correct.
So if they're going to a chiropractor or nutritionist who is not, nutritionists can't, I don't think they can order blood studies like a medical doctor or chiropractor can. Mm-hmm. So if they're not monitoring, if that nutritionist or chiropractor is not monitoring that person's platelet count, and they're still putting them on the omega-3, they could get that patient in trouble then.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Great.
So then the next superfood that we would look at is probiotics. And probiotics are basically those bacteria that work well with us. They enhance our function, particularly the function of our gastrointestinal tract, rather than draw away from it. such as you don't hear about a vitamin K deficiency. And the reason that there's very little vitamin K deficiency is that the bacteria in our intestinal tract actually creates, through its metabolism, all the vitamin K that we generally need. And so there could be a problem with those bacteria if that's a problem. We may not have that population there.
I think as I sometimes are up in the middle of the night and I turn on the cable channels and flip through, and early in the mornings you see these people now, these people are selling probiotics and books and things like that. And they're making it sound like it's a cure-all, when in fact, when we go and ask many of those people for their independent laboratory analysis of this probiotic that they're making all these claims for, we never hear back from them.
Sure.
Because in fact, they're producing a product very inexpensively so they can increase their margin of profit, and it doesn't often have what the label says it has. And the FDA is so busy trying to chase after all these drug companies and these medical device manufacturers to try and regulate them and test their products that there's very, very little testing done in the food supplement area, and that includes the probiotic realm as well. So what do good scientifically proven probiotics possibly do for the body?
Well, good bacteria actually, they will enhance the absorption of certain vital nutrients, so enhance digestion. They'll enhance the immune system, actually help build that up. And also another thing that they do is, since in the intestinal tract it's almost a fight for territory there. So if you're fighting against a yeast infection or something like that, some of these bacteria, they'll use their own defenses, such as forming formic acid out of short-chain fatty acids. It'll start to use that formic acid to fight the bad bacteria, or fight the yeast and fungus. But then that formic acid is then turned around. It's fuel for repair of the intestinal tract also. So it's a win-win situation.
You make me think that that there's an acid pH in the stomach, and then in the proximal end of the small intestine it has to be an alkaline pH. So if in fact there's an acid pH in the proximal end of the small intestine, it's going to destroy those probiotic bacteria, right? Kill them off. And so again, one should really determine, they should know through somebody like us, not that we're promoting ourselves, what is that pH, and there are simple ways to determine that, right?
Sure, and that's another thing also, is that if you're taking probiotics in order to inoculate your system with the good bacteria, it should be enteric coated, which means that the capsule that it's in can pass through that acid environment without killing them off, so that once that capsule reaches the alkaline area and it opens that capsule, that bacteria is still viable.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that just because every probiotic is in a capsule,
No.
that capsule is going to be acid resistant.
It needs to be enteric coated. Okay?
Enteric meaning that it's constructed so that it only will break down in the small intestine, not the stomach where it would be destroyed. So let's then talk about the kings of plant kingdom phytochemicals. So the kings of the plant kingdom, which are called phytochemicals. Phytochemicals are naturally occurring plant chemicals found in fruits and vegetables. A little over 10 years ago, researchers began to uncover a virtual gold mine of disease-fighting compounds called phytochemicals, which again are naturally occurring plant chemicals in fruits and vegetables. Now let's begin talking about these phytochemicals. One of the most important one is lycopene. Where is it found? Found in tomatoes. What is its principal positive effect on the body? It fights colon cancer. Another phytochemical that is very, very important is lutein. It's found in what? Spinach. It helps in the body in preventing cataracts, as well as treating cataracts, as well as macular degeneration. We're talking about lutein there. Now, what about Brussels sprouts? I understand that they're a superfood.
Certainly. And one of the things that you also should understand is sometimes it's how you take these foods. because the things like those, the lycopene-containing foods, what we find is that you can absorb it up to 7 times faster if you have it with an oil. So you have your essential fatty acids with it, and it'll help it absorb much better for you.
And it'd be better in a non-cooked state than a raw state, the raw tomato or the raw spinach or...
Right,
Okay, great.
right.
Because
Or
we
lightly
know-
steamed.
We know that when it's above 104 degrees Fahrenheit, the heat kills off vitamin C and all of the B-complex vitamins.
And that's something that you should know also is that if you have foods, usually they look at it as a lightly steamed, still al dente, still a little bit crispy, but lightly steamed because what it does is it actually opens up the cell membrane to release the nutrients that are inside of it. Though the steaming will kill off some of the vitamins that are in it, will denature them, it will release more than what it destroyed, so you end up digesting more or absorbing more than if it was just eaten raw.
So that brings a question then, microwave. Microwave increases the temperature beyond 104 degrees Fahrenheit, so guess what? When we microwave a fruit or a vegetable or anything with the B-complex vitamins in it or vitamin C, they're destroyed.
Right.
Okay, well, going back to Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts, they're rich in sulforaphane. It's the vitamins that are found in it, that it's very rich in calcium, folic acid, and water-soluble fiber. Water-soluble fiber is very important for the health of the intestinal tract.
Swells up.
It swells up. It reduces how fast sugars are absorbed, and therefore can help regulate against metabolic syndrome. In that case,
I know some of the independent laboratory analysis that we've seen on these fiber products that people are using for digestive issues turn out to be wood fiber, and they're not water soluble.
No.
But it's cheaper than using a water soluble fiber.
Right. But the non-soluble fibers are also important in that it helps scrub the intestinal tract on its way through. So you want to have a balance of both, as well as some of these water-soluble ones help create short-chain fatty acids, which what they do is the bacteria in there will create, like I said before, will create the folic acid, and the folic acid, or formic acid, and that formic acid will in turn be used as a fuel to help heal the intestinal tract.
Great.
So that's another thing. It has 100 times more sulforaphane than the mature broccoli plant. So we're looking at broccoli sprouts. 1 ounce of broccoli sprouts has as much of the cancer-fighting compound as 1/4 pound of garden variety broccoli.
Wow, that's a big difference.
So yeah, that's a huge difference. So you want to have the young plant in that case. And what is sulforaphane? Sulforaphane kills H. pylori bacteria.
Bad thing.
Yeah, H. pylori,
It's a bacteria. I cannot believe the number of people that have gone to medical doctors, so-called nutritionally oriented chiropractors, or nutritionists who've had these chronic digestive issues, and nobody has ever done a blood test for H. pylori bacteria. It is absolute. You can't sue them. You could sue them for malpractice, but it's not worth it because you're not going to win, and no attorney probably take the case. But the key is that this is an important bacteria that should be determined on all people with digestive issues.
Take for instance, gastric ulcer is basically, they found the causative agent for a gastric ulcer is H. pylori. It dissolves away the mucous membrane, and so you start to digest the inside of your stomach. And so that's very important that the sulforaphane helps to kill the H. pylori bacteria. So it'd be very good for those people who are suffering from gastric ulcers. Anti-cancer. If you look at it, the inside lining of the stomach is made of these epithelial cells. Epithelial cells change when there's irritation to them, and that irritation can make them change into cancerous cells. So again, that helps. It's linked to Alzheimer's and heart disease is the H. pylori bacteria would be.
Now that brings up the subjects, then we should talk about Hippocrates for a minute. He was said, and we're quoting him, Let food be your medicine. Let food be your medicine, and medicine be your food. And what's turning around these days is we're letting drugs be our medicine rather than food be our medicine. And it is committing suicide to our own bodies. So how about some supernatural foods? As the announcer said, Dr. Jensen and I also wear a pastor's hat, and so we do believe in supernatural healings as well. And one of the scriptures that we wanted to bring up here today was a supernatural food. Attend to my words, they are life and health, or medicine to all your flesh. So if we attend to the Word of God by grace, not by the law, because Jesus came to satisfy all of the laws, a means of achieving and or maintaining righteousness, a right standing with the Father. Therefore, the Father doesn't remember our sins anymore. He's not going to remember the sins that we commit tomorrow or today or in the future, because they've been all wiped away by the shed blood of the Lamb, which is an ongoing work within our spirit, thus affecting, to the degree that we cooperate with our Holy Spirit, our body and our mind. So we took that from Proverbs chapter 4, verses 20 through 22. It is a supernatural food. And as Jesus even said in Matthew, man shall not live by bread alone. He admits that we are going to eat bread, but that he'll live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. So, going back to our superfoods, if we come back down to the earth realm here, what do? If they have not been denatured, not been polluted by pesticides, herbicides, hormones, antibodies, overcooked, superfoods boost our immune system. They assist in preventing heart disease. They improve one's sexual drive, and they combat fatigue. Now, Dr. Jensen here is going to quote Thomas Edison, which is a very, very important statement.
Yes, Thomas Edison actually had this wonderful statement. The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest the patients in the care of the human frame, diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. So we find as chiropractors, we certainly do work in the care of the human frame. And what we're talking to you today is about things that we can put into our diet to help us with prevention of the causes of diseases. So then, going on with some of our superfoods, there's sprouts, seeds, and young cereal grasses. One of the things that we find is in sprouts, sailors, you know how they used to call them limeys? The English are called limeys, and it's because what they did was they used to suck on a lime for the vitamin C so they didn't get scurvy out at sea. A lot of modern day vagabonds, should we say, sailors that are out there bring sprouts for their vitamin C because of the vitamin C content in these young plants. Mm-hmm. So sprouts, seeds, and young cereal grasses contain vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. They contain beta-carotene, more beta-carotene than carrots do, and 50 times more the vitamin C than apples do. So they're very important for vitamin C and some of these nutrients.
Now we're going to take a look at sprouted grasses. They contain 5 times more iron than spinach. Isn't that interesting? 13 times more of the antioxidant beta-carotene than carrots. 55 times more vitamin C than apples. Then we want to look at something very important called wheatgrass and barley grass. They then are gluten-free, and many people have celiac disease. Many of them are diagnosed early in life with celiac disease, but there are a lot of adults that we find who have had chronic digestive problems that have never had proper diagnostic testing, that's food allergy testing, to see if they have a gluten sensitivity. So again, now the wheatgrass and barley grass are gluten-free. Then let's turn to some green foods, Some green foods. Why would they be called green foods? Because they contain a lot of chlorophyll. Now, green foods like wheatgrass and barley grass capture the sun's power to produce chlorophyll, the green pigment in plants and the source of human life. One of the first ones that we want to address that's a superfood is called spirulina. It consists of 65% protein. This is a good, healthy protein.
Wow.
Then it also contains a chemical, a natural chemical, a good chemical called chlorella. It's the richest source of chlorophyll, the very richest source of chlorophyll. Now, Dr. Jensen is going to readdress a little bit more about wheat and barley.
Okay, wheat and barley contain proteins, vitamins, and minerals. And so what we find is people start to create or designer foods from the National Cancer Institute. What we find is that many times they'll call some of these foods, designer foods, medical foods, because they're designed to help the prevention of certain types of disease processes. And so we have 4,000 plants that reduce inflammation, stimulate cellular growth, repair injured and diseased cells, and work with the detoxification and neutralize cancer. So these are very important designer foods in that case. One of the things that they do is they knock out free radicals, and this is to help against damaging the cells and aging tissues, as well as the organs, keeping them young. And so those are also found in these free radical compounds. Compounds that fight free radicals are found in, free radicals can be found in the air, in the water, in foods, in medications, in dried foods, and in tobacco smoke. In fact, they find that every puff that a person takes from a cigarette, they said, basically contains 1 billion free radicals that they have to fight now within their body. And that fight takes place at the antioxidant level, which primarily affects your vitamin C levels in your body. And vitamin C is very important for the creation of collagen. And so that's where you start to see them start to get a little more wrinkled and so forth. Their skin changes when they're smoking like that. It's due to depleting their free radicals to that area. Many times when people are taking vitamins to help their skin stay supple and so forth, they're taking these antioxidant vitamins, vitamin E and C and A, for their skin. Again, antioxidants, they render these free radicals harmless, and basically what they are is they're particles that have lost an electron and then become very electronically reactive in the body, and they will react with just anything that can give up electrons. One of those would be DNA, and therefore changing your DNA. And so that it's very important to have things that fight free radicals. Acai berries, they contain anthocyanins, and anthocyanins are a very rich source of antioxidants. And of course, when it's an antioxidant, they talk about that in its way of being able to fight cancer and fight inflammations to a great degree. Then turmeric. Turmeric contains curcumin, and it's equal to cortisone. It acts as an anti-inflammatory. It lowers cholesterol, and it's an anti-cancer agent, and also helps prevent blood clots. So that's a very interesting superfood in turmeric. So you can see where Dr. Lala was talking about, let your food be your medicine and medicine be your food. That's what this stuff is really doing for you. And so it's lifestyle, folks. Lifestyle that you eat these particular foods to help prevent these diseases. Mangosteen juice is a superfood. It contains xanthones, which are powerful antioxidants that combat inflammation, as well as free radicals. Goji berries. Goji berries, they stimulate the production of human growth hormone, which is also known as the anti-aging hormone. So that's interesting, where people have been taking, they'll take these human growth hormones, and in this case, the body has a chance to regulate itself. Once the body no longer has the capability of regulating itself, that's when you start to have a lot of problems. So when people are taking, say, hormone therapies and other types of things like that, where they end up having 10 times the amount in their body. That's not necessarily good. But in this case, it's going through the gastrointestinal tract and it can regulate it itself, and therefore stimulates a correct amount of human growth hormone, which, by the way, helps against osteoporosis, those kinds of things. Pomegranates. Pomegranates are very interesting. They are a potent antioxidant with silymarin. In milk thistle is a powerful liver protector against toxins in the environment and regenerate the liver in neurological disorders, including Alzheimer's disease. If we look at pomegranates, there's been a lot of research in pomegranate juice, which will actually, they've been able to find where it actually starts to open up the blood vessels again that have that plaquing and scarring in there. They have some very good research on that, but again, it's buyer beware. All the research is basically on those things that have been cold pressed, those pomegranate juices that were cold pressed, that have not gone through the regular heat cycle
Pasteurization.
for the pasteurization, which could destroy those chemicals. And so they're looking at raw pomegranates or the juice that's been freshly squeezed or cold pressed juice is where the research says that it has this effect. So if you're going from those, the way that you can tell is that's the stuff that they have to keep in the refrigerator, rather than in the refrigeration aisle, rather than just out on a regular aisle.
And I've been known to go in some health food stores where the pomegranate juice was in the refrigerator section, but it was still had been pasteurized.
Aha.
I don't know why they would do that. Go ahead.
Okay, and then sea vegetables, Dunalia. It lowers cholesterol, it can reduce blood pressure, and have an antioxidant activity also. And Dr. Lala, how about green and white tea?
Green and white tea, wow, they contain polyphenols. These are these wonderful, wonderful good chemicals. They have the same effect as NSAIDs, non-steroidal over-the-counter drugs. All right, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs without any adverse side effects. So green and white tea contain these polyphenols. Now, how about garlic and onions? They're excellent. They're natural astringents. Natural astringents, they're excellent and something that we really want to seriously consider. And lastly, we want to look at managing versus mismanaging. To see is to know, it really is. To fail to see is not to know, and therefore it creates the likelihood of mismanagement of our health. There's a lot of business going on out there today about nutrition and vitamins and minerals and probiotics and chiropractic and all of these things, and all kinds of people are getting into it. Dr. Jensen and I have attended classes put on by some pretty good pharmaceutical companies on nutrition, and they were really geared to chiropractors and medical doctors. There were a small percentage of them and a very small percentage of chiropractors. As a matter of fact, I once asked the detail man from this company of the 5-state area around here, how many chiropractors were seriously into nutrition? In other words, was the nutrition that they were using in their office science-based? And he said to me about 4. Well, there were 2 of us in our clinic and 2 others. One was in South Dakota and the other was in Iowa. So it says that there are a lot of people practicing in the nutrition area because it's kind of the in thing, and there's a way of making money out of it. So there's the greed factor motivation. But the fact is that much of the nutrition being practiced is not science-based. They're using shotgun nutrition, shotgun orthomolecular therapy on people without diagnostic testing. And it might seem simple and inexpensive, but I want to tell you something. You're not saving money by avoiding diagnostic testing. In the long run, you're costing yourself, your health, and ultimately your finances as well. So take good care of your body. It's the only one you're going to have. Thank you for being with us.